Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. As I record this, we're in the midst of a absolute freaking blitz of Star Wars home video releases. It is October of 2013, a time in which Lucasfilm, in its infinite wisdom, had decided to release 7 different home video products, albeit, less for the regular consumer, all within the span of 8 days. In honor of that, we're back with more episodes of From the Star Wars Home Video Library. So, what are we looking at this time? This is a sea change kind of episode here. We have already seen the original releases on VHS and elsewhere of A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So far, for the most part, there haven't been a lot of changes. Now, granted, early on, we had those first handful of A New Hope releases that were missing C-3PO's line about the tractor beam and such because they were the stereo mix based on what we heard in theaters in stereo. They then reworked that. We got that new release in '84 that had that line brought in because it was a remastered soundtrack. Granted, we then, thanks to the Definitive Collection Laserdiscs, got an updated picture and updated soundtrack for the films, which proved to be the basis for those THX remastered releases in '95 on VHS. But all of those changes, with the exception of C-3PO's added line, for the most part were very much cosmetic. It was less about changing something big and more about just making what was there look better. Then came 1997. We had been told with that 95 release that this was the original, one last time. Now, we get a chance to see it again for the first time. It is the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition, something that really sort of began with a lot of controversy and continues to have it in many respects to this day. It is the beginning of massive changes to the Star Wars films. Understand, from 1977 until 1997, the first 20 years of the Star Wars saga, George Lucas changed little to nothing on the Star Wars films when they were released on home video. Yeah, we got our first edition of A New Hope on home video in '82. It had the Episode 4 A New Hope on it. There wasn't a VHS release prior to that was missing the little subtitle in the opening crawl, right? It didn't come out on VHS until after that had already been changed and The Empire Strikes Back and such were already out. Heck, it was a year before Return of the Jedi came out in theaters, so it took a while. That was a tweak, but not one that we had multiple versions of on VHS. He just hadn't really tinkered with it too much until the time came for that THX remastering where he got a chance to go back and see just how good he can make the picture look on this deteriorated quality film cells and just how good the sound mix could be with the THX mastering process, something that he and his company, THX, developed themselves. Now, he's going full force into actually reinventing in some ways the original Star Wars trilogy. It began, innocently enough, excitingly enough, with what I think is probably the single best Star Wars trailer for any Star Wars film of any kind ever. One that sort of sets the standard, the gold standard for me, on exactly what it is a trailer should do, what it should be, and the emotions it should evoke in fans. I'm going to play it for you here in its entirety, then we're going to take a look at what happened when these were released on VHS and elsewhere. Here's the trailer for the Star Wars Trilogy's Special Edition.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
Now, for its 20th anniversary, the adventure of a lifetime returns to the big screen in a way you've never seen before.
There'll be no one to stop us this time.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
With newly enhanced visual effects,
They're coming in too fast!
THX and digital sound, and a few new surprises.
Hanabuki Bardonyanda.
On President's Day weekend, 1997,
Good luck.
George Lucas and 20th Century Fox invite you to welcome back Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2-D2. Finally, the motion picture event, the way it was meant to be experienced.
This will be a day long remembered.
As the entire Star Wars trilogy returns on February 14th, Star Wars, followed soon after by The Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi.
Move closer!
For a whole new generation who have yet to experience it on the big screen. And for everyone else to experience it again.
That boy is our last hope.
No, there is another.
The Star Wars Trilogy, Special Edition. See it again for the first time.
The Force will be with you, always.
This was huge. We have a reworking of the Star Wars saga to some extent. Now we're going to take a look at these as we go along. This episode of the show, is not going to focus on cataloging every single difference between the original editions and the special edition, nor will we do that for the DVD editions or Blu-ray editions later. Yes, that's right. In the first 20 years, Lucas barely touched the saga, and then from 97 up until 2011, he changed it repeatedly, as if he just couldn't get enough of going in and tinkering with it now that he had digital technology. I originally said that we would never come back and catalog the individual changes to the different releases. It would just take too long, and hey, what were we going to do when the Star Wars trilogy's most recent release of the original trilogy and the prequels, though there are very few changes in those, was on Blu-ray, and I don't have the capacity to capture Blu-ray footage for use within this series. Then came the Blitz of 2013. October 8th, 2013 brought us these new releases of both trilogies in basically what amounts to a combo pack, Blu-ray and DVD. They didn't really make a big hubbub about it. They announced it once on StarWars.com, so no trailers about it, no television commercials about it. It was as if they put these out and it just ceased to exist in anybody's mind until they hit store shelves. But what had always been sort of a mystery with these is what's going on with that DVD. Surely Lucas wasn't just going to repackage the same stinking DVD that we'd already gotten 4 times, because that edition is no longer exactly the same as his definitive vision, supposedly, because the Blu-rays had changes. Were we going to get DVDs that instead were the Blu-ray edition, but at a lower resolution? So the first time that version hit DVD. Turns out that is exactly what we got, and it is thanks to these, and my ability to actually capture DVD content, that someday, way down the line, probably once this series is mostly wrapped up, probably sometime during the summer, you will get a chance to see a cataloging of different changes to the films thanks to from the Star Wars home video library. I know there's a lot out there on YouTube. I'll try to add enough entertaining commentary to make it interesting for those who maybe seen this a dozen times before by different creative teams. Now, Lucas changed a lot for these films, more A New Hope than the other two. We'll take a look at that briefly. But one thing that's changed as well heading towards 1997 is that in that 20 years, the home video landscape has changed dramatically. Used to be, back in the early 80s, that most people didn't own a VCR, or if you did, you tended to rent movies, not buy them, or tape them perhaps instead off of television. And you definitely didn't buy movies in widescreen format because, hey, that's just weird, you got the little black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. It took Star Wars until 1992 to ever reach that point. Now it's 1997. People are watching films in widescreen, to an extent, enough so that it's not something for just a collector's edition, like in 92, or just a harder to find different box set, as was the case with the THX remastered versions in 95. It'll be a little more mainstream to see widescreen releases on VHS. Also, the speed with which videos come out is much faster at this point. Remember, A New Hope took 5 years, 77 to 82. Empire Strikes Back took 4 years, 80 to 84. Return of the Jedi took 3 years, 83 to 86. These films were all released in 1997. A New Hope in January, Empire Strikes Back in February, and in March, though there was a week delay because of wanting a bigger box office, Return of the Jedi. Then, just a few months later, in August of the same year, we finally got to see these versions of the Star Wars films on home video. My, how things had changed. Now, speaking of changes, of course, we're talking about the original special editions here. So from the and Isn't it just sad we have to say original special editions? How many freaking times are you going to change the films, George? Now that you've stepped away from Star Wars, does that mean you're going to let it go? Or are you going to step in from time to time and say, hey, Disney, can I play in my sandbox again? And then change them yet again. Maybe fix some of those weird continuity errors you've done with the Blu-rays, like those rocks that were always meant, because it was your creative vision, to be in front of R2-D2 from one angle and then gone in the other angle. I'm sure that was something that was bugging you all the way since 77. Anyway, I digress. This is the version of A New Hope that is, of course, known for a lot of updated CG in the Battle of Yavin, the reinsertion of the Declan Mulholland Jabba the Hutt scene with the CGI Jabba the Hutt over the actor. This is the one that gives us the expanded Mos Eisley Cantina sequence. Changes, for some reason, some of the Cantina patrons, who I guess looked a little bit too much like just regular wolfmen and the like. It's the one in which apparently any planet that explodes now needs a ring, a wave, to shoot out from it, a la Star Trek VI. And it's the version of A New Hope in which now Han no longer shoots first. Greedo shoots first. Han reacts in a somewhat clumsily CG tweaked scene. Then, of course, we have The Empire Strikes Back. We now see the Wampa that we didn't really need to see. Takes away some of that Ridley Scott alien-style creepiness. And we also get the expanded Cloud City, which is pretty cool, even though it doesn't always show up in every camera angle. We get that cool, bigger vista of Cloud City and the like. We get a couple of also alternate audio lines in there, like you're lucky you got out of there, instead of you're lucky you don't taste very good, because of the different audio mix that was going on there. And, of course, there is Return of the Jedi. And Return of the Jedi brings us, among other things, a beak for the Sarlacc, and 2 changed musical numbers. The ridiculous Jedi Rocks instead of Lepti Nek and Jabba's Palace, and of course the new ending celebration music instead of the Yub Nub stuff from the Ewoks. It was so endearing originally. Now, all those are just some of the changes made to the Special Edition trilogy. We will eventually chronicle them in some special episodes of this series. But what about the home video release? Well, in August of 1997, if you were buying this on VHS, you had multiple choices yet again. They released 2 different regular boxed sets in the same approximate size as those 3 VHS box sets that were released back in 1990 and 1992. Now, the weird thing here is the color schemes they chose. This is the gold color scheme. Now, when I think of gold and silver, we think things like the Olympics, right? Gold is better than silver. Silver may look cooler in some cases, but gold is generally considered to be better. What they did here was they released the full screen or pan and scan version without any notation saying that it is on the box in gold, and they released a widescreen edition in silver. I think the silver looks a lot cooler, but it doesn't make a lot of logical sense if silver and gold are supposed to be thought of the same way we think of with metals and the like. Now, in each of these, you have this sliding out sort of Vader head going on here. You have 3 VHS tapes, which could also be purchased separately. Of course, A New Hope. We got our new label there in gold. It just says Star Wars Special Edition. And on the back, new details about the film. Again, all ringed in gold in this case. We have The Empire Strikes Back. Same kind of label here. Same kind of back. Return of the Jedi. Same kind of label. And again, same kind of back with the gold ringing everything. On the other hand, your widescreen set, which is noted on the side here. Notice there, it's kind of hard to see. Widescreen is said there, and widescreen is said at the top. The full screen one doesn't say that it's full screen. It just says Special Edition. Pull these out of here. Again, we have A New Hope. Same thing. For the most part, notice though, when you look at these, it's the same thing as with the boxes. The gold ones that are full screen don't say it. They just assume you're watching just a regular full screen video. The widescreen ones say that they are widescreen so that you know what the heck it is that is going on. Now, what I find interesting about this, okay, aside from the fact it just says widescreen, it says Star Wars Special Edition widescreen underneath, I find it interesting that if you look at the backs actually did not really change. You would think that with silver being what you're seeing here, that the boxes around the pictures would tend to be that as well, but they're not. Although, the box contents are actually quite different. between the two. This is the widescreen. This is the full screen over here. The fronts are the same except for that widescreen notation. Empire Strikes Back. Again, same kind of label. Its reverse side versus the full screen reverse side. Again, highlighting the fact that it's widescreen and a bigger picture, bigger aspect ratio, wider. Okay, again, special edition, widescreen Return of the Jedi, and again, this is the widescreen back, and, it'd be better if I showed you the back, that is the full screen back. So we do have some different packaging designs this time around, but both of these were readily available. You could buy either one, saw them very easily on store shelves. Wasn't a big deal to track down the widescreen version. You didn't need some kind of super special, cool, limited edition thing like in '92 to release widescreen, or some crazy special packaging size to release something in widescreen like in '95. That doesn't mean, though, that they didn't go for special editions of the special editions. It's just that this time it was a separate product. You could buy the widescreen stuff on its own. What was not available in most stores was a special limited edition collector's set that was essentially the widescreen set, but there are some differences here to be noted. First, let's look at the box itself and its tapes, and then we can take a look at what's going on with the content here. Nice, enormous, rather thick packaging. It's about the size, actually I think it's a little bit bigger than the one that we got in 1992. Now, on each of the regular VHS tapes, it began with what's sort of like a trailer for the special edition. It's more of just kind of a nice fanfare type of intro. Then it goes into information about how each film was altered for the special edition, sort of a behind-the-scenes type of thing that it's got going on. And then you go into the film. That approach was actually altered for the collector's edition, and this is something that usually people don't realize that they're getting when they happen to pick up this box set. Inside the box set, rather large, got the original sheet here that told you what was going to be in it, that was on the back inside the shrink wrap and everything. You actually have sort of two layers going on here. This is the top layer, sort of a velvet type thing going on here, that you then lift out of the rest of it to get access to the things that are underneath here. In that velvet piece, or whatever it is, you get a special paperweight, as if you're going to use it as a paperweight, that denotes this as a limited edition and is individually numbered out of 40,000 of this particular edition. Mine happens to be number 1,270. You also get a special VHS tape not available anywhere else. The Making of, I can hardly see it because it's silver, Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. Not the Making of the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition, just the Making of Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. It's a little bit clumsy in the wording, quite frankly, here. And it says that on the side as well. It's not like there's just a missing V on the front. It says it on the side. Again, cool little VHS. Says the same thing here. Close it up. On the back, just a quick little rundown here. But it calls it a special behind-the-scenes look at the renewal of a modern myth. All this is the little behind-the-scenes features from each of the regular VHS tapes taken and smashed together, merged, to make a longer documentary type of thing. This is the way the opening looks for an individual VHS release.
In 1977, producer-director George Lucas created the Star Wars Trilogy and changed the way we looked at movies. Now, 20 years later, using new digital technology, Lucas and his creative teams at Lucasfilm, THX, Skywalker Sound, and Industrial Light and Magic have completely restored, enhanced, and added to these classic movies to create the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. For the trilogy's second installment, The Empire Strikes Back, Lucas supervised the addition of brand new footage, as well as an enhanced look for many of the film's key scenes and locations.
Now here's how it's changed just a tiny bit to turn this into something that's not a film-by-film background, but instead one that covers all three on this exclusive VHS.
In 1977, producer-director George Lucas created the Star Wars Trilogy and changed the way we looked at movies. Now, 20 years later, using new digital technology, Lucas and his creative teams at Lucasfilm, THX, Skywalker Sound, and Industrial Light and Magic have completely restored, enhanced, and added to these classic movies to create the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition.
See, there's not really much to it. You're getting the exact same content on that VHS as you got on the others, which begs the question, what about the VHS tapes in this set? Wouldn't it be kind of stupid and redundant for them to start with the behind-the-scenes stuff when you've got a special exclusive video that's supposed to be so cool because it's got that exact same behind-the-scenes stuff? You're right, that would be weird. We're going to get to that in a moment when we get to the tapes, but keep that in mind. So we keep digging. This is the Star Wars Trilogy Limited Edition Collector's Set art prints. Right, of the poster arts. We have A New Hope. Oh, yeah. Empire Strikes Back. Return of the Jedi. Nice, kind of thick stock, little art prints, suitable for framing if you were to go that route. You have a cool little book. The Art of the, see, they got it right this time, of the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. Deals with all three. This is based on stuff taken out of those other Art of Star Wars books. Kind of nice. I mean, not extremely long or anything. Runs about 50 pages. But kind of cool, concept art and things like that that relate to the special editions specifically. And actually, my favorite part of it, Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition 35mm Special Edition Film Clip Newly Enhanced Footage. It is a film cell, or a set of film cells here, a little piece of a film reel that specifically is not just from a Star Wars film, but specifically from one of the updated scenes in the special edition versions of the films. I thought that was kind of cool that it specifies it down quite that much. It actually reminds me a lot of these. If you remember these back in the day, the 70mm limited edition film cell things that were all thematic, based on characters and situations and that sort of thing here. Very much like these. Something that, I'm not going to go out of my way to find, but it's kind of cool to see it in the set. Makes it a nice little piece of Star Wars memorabilia. Then you have the tapes themselves. They're widescreen to be in this set. So same box for widescreen. Same labels. And we're going to find that that's the case with all three of them. But here's the thing. Instead of putting those documentary clips on there, or whatever you want to call it, the ones about how the films have changed, since that would be redundant with that exclusive video, they replace them simply with the theatrical trailer for that special edition film. So the one that I just showed you a few minutes ago is the one that was on the A New Hope VHS tape. Then the one for Empire's on Empire and Jedi's on Jedi. The ones that you can now also find on that 2004 bonus disc DVD release for the original trilogy. I thought that was kind of cool, kind of classy, but a little weird, because the boxes of these and the labels on the tapes themselves give you absolutely no indication there's anything different with these than in this widescreen set. It's just that logic dictates that it shouldn't be. And sure enough, logic won out this time. Would have been nice for them to note it here. If you own both of them like I do and you got these mixed up, the only way you'd be able to tell the difference is to pop them in a VCR, if you even have one hooked up anymore, to figure out which tape is which. But a nice, cool little set here. If I may, though, let me point out that if you're looking for this enormous bad boy on places like eBay, be careful. Buyer or bidder, beware. There are a lot of these out there that don't have all the pieces to them. I wound up buying 2 of them before I actually had a complete one, because one of them was missing a couple parts, but everything else was in great shape. Another was had all the parts, but some of them were a little more dinged up than in this set, and I basically cannibalized them and mixed them together to finally get one that has all the pieces. You gotta be careful when you're looking for these. Make a checklist mentally of the things that I showed you here and make sure that they are in the package if you're buying it. Otherwise, you're buying an incomplete set. And finally, I should note that in 1997, there was also a new Laserdisc release of the trilogy to coincide with this set. It is widescreen, of course, because that's what you would expect Laserdisc to be in at this point. This is one I actually didn't expect to ever find. I hadn't really thought about picking up a lot of Laserdiscs or anything, but an old friend of mine, James, who I've known since my old days in the late 90s on the AOL Discuss the Prequels message board, happened to have one of these. He has it in his collection somewhere and would be willing to sell it. So I made him an offer and everything, and then nothing happened for a while because he wasn't quite sure where it was. And eventually, by the time he found it, I was going through some money issues and that sort of thing, and just kind of out of the blue, he says, "What's your address?" And just shoots it on over to me as a gift, essentially, from one Star Wars collector to another, because he knows how much I'm into the Star Wars home video stuff these days. So thank you again, James. This is very cool, and let's see what is inside it. Again, not anything special on the back or anything like that. The front is pretty much the same thing you get with that limited edition. This just says widescreen Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition, no limited anything listed on there. It has a sort of guidebook thing, enormous here, with poster art from each of the three, chapter stops and that sort of thing. And then on the inside, it folds open to give you some background on the creation of the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition. It also lists here your different bonus content, if you want to call it that, and sides 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the first disc, both sides, and the front side of the second disc are all A New Hope. It goes through the entire film and then the theatrical trailer. Then you pick up with side 4, the second side of disc number 2. It's The Empire Strikes Back. Runs you then through to the next disc where it's sides 5 and 6, and at the end of the film, theatrical trailer. You pick up with side 7 out of the set, and it's Return of the Jedi, goes through side 8, side 9 ends, theatrical trailer, and then bonus content. A featurette, another segment called Fleshing Out the Characters, one called The Limits of 1977 Technology, Visual Enhancements, The Sound, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, a new musical finale, and As It Was Meant to Be. I believe many of which are repurposed segments from those documentaries you can find on the VHS editions or in that limited edition set as that separate VHS tape. Again, they're all in nice packaging here. I'll just show you one of these as an example. Got the nice logo up here. All the discs have the Vader face and tells you which side it is that you're looking at. And of course, these are laser discs, so right, they're the big CD-looking things. A laser disc, of course. And again, there are 9 sides. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then underneath, to keep them safe, a nice velvety backdrop, just like you got with that collector's VHS set. And in case you're wondering, of these 5 discs, that's 9 sides, what about the other side? Just blank. There's nothing on it, nothing to it. There's no logo either. This, by the way, is a Star Wars Trilogy swan song on Laserdisc. It had defined the Laserdisc genre with that definitive collection that set the stage for the THX remastered editions on VHS and the special editions themselves. And the special editions on Laserdisc would be it. We would not wind up seeing the eventual release of any further cuts or releases of the Star Wars Trilogy in that format. So goodbye Laserdisc, hello in the near future, DVD and Blu-ray. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at all of the myriad of different releases for the Special Edition Trilogy in 1997. It's been an extra long episode for an extra important topic. Keep an eye out. Our next episode is coming very soon. Probably knowing the way I post on Facebook and everything, within minutes of this episode being released, or at least within a day or so. Keep an eye out. The next thing we will look at is the next time those same films, the special editions from 97, were released on VHS one last time. Sound familiar? Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.